Come dream with me tonight. Let's go to far-off places and search for treasures bright. Come dream with me tonight. Let's build a giant airship and sail into the sky. Let's watch the ground so far below. Let's watch the birds as they fly by. The butterflies in springtime will lead us on our way. Exploding dandelions will brighten summer's day. And if our dream's a good one, and if our dream is right, then imagination can be real if we will dream tonight.
Perched atop a line of steep palisades, high above Pacific waves that roll into Dana Point, California, is a 5,000 square foot home of stunning visual and tactile impact. The owners are a multi-talented couple who work as a team developing educational toys and software. She has spent 20 years in teaching and educational consulting. He is perhaps best known as the inventor of the best-selling talking toy bear named Teddy Ruxpin, all of which explains the stuffed animals found throughout the house. Amy Ziffer, Audiovisual Interiors.
It took 14 months. Ken designed it on a Macintosh. It wasn't even an engineering program, but we bought a big plotter and we'd sit at night instead of watching TV, we'd watch him print out all the drawings that he'd drawn during the day. And Ken loved every moment of it. He'd say, "What kind of a kitchen do you want?" And I said, "I want one I can reach across," because I was thinking of apartments that I'd lived in that were very convenient. And it was really fun. And he'd say, "What's your favorite color? What colors do you want to use?" Basically, it was Ken's design, but I felt very much a part of it. And Ken would talk with the builder. Dan would say, "Well, what do you want here?" And Ken said, "Let me go home and I'll make you a drawing." And the house was very unique. It had Japanese tile roof. It was truly a dream house for both of us.
The blue of the ocean with sun-bounced reflections, it sparkles like crystals and jewels. The rocky bluff shoreline is jaggedly formed as though carved with whittling tools. It faces the south, so the sunsets of winter, they glow with a luminous light. While just a step inland, the lights of the city, they sparkle and shimmer all night. Then morning arrives on a Kodachrome sunrise to open each bright sunny day. And sometimes in summer, as though to add a drama, a fog moves on shore just to play. The ships in the harbor, with blue canvas rigging, all point with their masts to the sky, where birds of the ocean observe every moment as gentle winds carry them high. On top of that bluff, overlooking the harbor, is a house we have built for our own. And seeing that scene from a blue-tiled rooftop, we know Dana Point, we are home.
The Muppets were Jim Henson's invention, and it was his spirit as well as his hands and voice that animated them. Until he died so unexpectedly at the age of 53, no one had apparently given much thought to the idea that the Muppets might, in any sense, be mortal. Henson's death made this curious notion unavoidable. After all, he did not just perform Kermit, he was Kermit. Stephen Harrigan, Life magazine, July 1990.
When Jim Henson died on May 16, 1990, it was very much felt by Ken Forsse, who, being just a week older than Henson, had had something of a working relationship with the man. They were kindred spirits who never got to directly and fully collaborate on a project together, and Ken began to reflect on his own mortality.
You do start to realize that there's only a finite amount of time on this planet. It's got to be scary, especially for somebody who is constantly creating, constantly writing down ideas and just thinking, if I could just find the right collaborator, to find the right colleague, to find the right distributor. So I think for Ken, it's like looking over the edge of the cliff.
Ken's response to Henson's passing was to dedicate the rest of his life to creating anything and everything with very little boundaries to the scope of his vision.
Ken and I knew that we wanted our own company. The first name he came up with was Funny Business. He decided that would be a good name for a company. That name was taken. Everything we would come up with was taken. So we decided that we were going to have to coin a word. And Ken liked to explore, and he liked being very active. So at some point, we put together explorative.
Explorative Concepts is based in the area of family entertainment. It is founded upon the belief that the most effective way to meet the social challenges of today and tomorrow is through the development of responsible forms of entertainment. Explorative Concepts also believes that the future role of entertainment must be broadened to include information, communication, and education.
Ken would come up with a new project every day. But the beauty of it, he didn't just think of an idea. He would write it up, and he would draw pictures of it and illustrate things. And he had all of these spiral-bound notebooks. When Ken and I worked together, he always said that I was the R, the research, and he was the D, the development. So we were R&D. And that was really fun working together.
Explorative Concepts has molded a philosophy for a company of the future. That company will be uniquely capable of anticipating and establishing future trends in the area of its involvement. It will understand the relationship of business, social, economic, and political considerations. It will be uniquely structured with the flexibility needed to ensure its own success and survival in a rapidly changing world.
Ken began to focus on how to better the world around him. He was very much following in the footsteps of fellow creative figures like Walt Disney, who towards the end of his life had worked on creating his experimental prototype Community of Tomorrow, and Jim Henson, who had viewed Fraggle Rock as a way to teach international understanding. This way of thinking was not new to him. Ken had actually spent some time during the mid-1980s developing something that he called Earthstone.
Ken was a big dreamer. Ken even had made a little medallion in the shape of the earth that you could wear around your neck, and I think he did wear it for a time. One of the conclusions I reached, which Ken wasn't too happy about, was that in order to change the world, individuals have to change themselves, or something has to change the individual. Then we can achieve world peace, but we've got a long way to go.
With Phil's conclusions in mind, Ken eventually decided that explorative concepts would tackle the problem at the beginning, with children in the classroom.
Ask any child entering kindergarten what they want to be when they grow up, and they'll tell you a firefighter, an actor, a baseball player. Ask those same children when they are leaving high school what profession they intend to pursue, and they'll likely tell you, I don't know. It takes less than 12 years in our present educational system to turn those youthful fantasies into confused disinterest.
Ken believed that the American education system was so antiquated and flawed that no amount of patchwork could fix it. He felt a complete overhaul was called for.
His views on education reform are by no means perfect, but there is something to be said about how he wanted to use the fantasies of 4- and 5-year-olds in motivating children from those young ages to foster realistic goals for the future.
In early school grades, we should let children choose from a list of jobs and provide them with the role-playing materials and activities which define each of those jobs. The materials and activities should also be rich with the vital elements of subjects and skills. So, the motivation of these role-playing jobs would inspire students to discover aspects of each profession, develop various critical skills, observe all the traditional subjects, and get permanently hooked on learning.
He believed children were innocent but creative and intelligent and had the ability and would rise to the expectation levels or far exceed the expectation levels that were presented to them, and knew that children were just a sponge of information to learn from, and they could learn, and didn't take that for granted.
We must ask an obvious question. Why do we want to educate our children? The best answer should be so that our children will become responsible, productive citizens and learn how their talents and interests will help to prepare them for fulfilling careers.
John Moore's paper sculpture captures a delicate side of the animal kingdom through subtle shadings and the lightest touch of color. But the proof is in the cutting, in the way he can trim paper into a convincing imitation of a feather or mold it to duplicate the folds in the skin of a rhinoceros. His portrait of a pair of swans is a study in white on white, tinged with a grayish blue. The outstretched wings seem as soft and lightly fringed as though made of real feathers. His tools include ordinary scissors and X-Acto knives for cutting, clay sculpting equipment for molding and embossing. Handles of wooden kitchen utensils are good for curling edges. Hairpins hold pieces together until the glue sets. Betty Shimabukuro, The Sun.
Having discovered paper sculpting in 1979 at the North Wind Studio in Ventura, California, John studied under Sigbert Reinhardt, the artist who introduced the three-dimensional medium to the United States. But whereas Reinhardt used few colors, John added to the art form by applying a light wash of watercolor to his work.
I first met Ken in the summer of 1992. He and his wife Jan were interested in some of my paper sculpture work they saw in my gallery in Laguna Beach, California. They asked my manager to ask me if I'd pay them a visit.
Ken wanted to have him help do some prototypes for us. And one time he was supposed to do a prototype of a fish. He came real apologetic about a week later and he said, "I'm really sorry I didn't get the prototype done, but I have this picture that I'm going to take to a gallery, and I just wanted to show it to you first." Well, it was the fish he was supposed to be working on. It was just amazing. And we said, "John, you cannot take this to a gallery. You have to sell it to us."
I believe my first project with Ken was a three-dimensional puzzle. Ken was a big-time jigsaw puzzle enthusiast, and he had developed a concept for a puzzle sculpture. The puzzle sculpture was made up of several odd-shaped, small puzzles joined together by a plastic skeleton. It was kind of like a three-dimensional stained glass window. Ken designed the framework, and I created a paper sculpture that we photographed for the puzzle image.
Ken applied for a patent on February 5, 1991, well over a year before Canadian Paul Gallant filed his for what eventually became Puzz 3D. In the document submitted by Ken, he pointed out that regular puzzles, once finished, likely found themselves taken apart, or at best, glued together and hung on a wall for a while. But as usual, the inventor saw the novelty in another approach.
There has been a need for a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle sculpture which is capable of holding the pieces in assembled form, is of simplified construction, and which retains the entertaining characteristics common to traditional jigsaw puzzles. Such a sculpture is needed which provides an entertaining, challenging, and educational experience for the assembler, and which will also result in an aesthetically pleasing art piece in the form of a showcase for the puzzle.
Unfortunately, nothing came of the puzzle project, and Puzz 3D took off after being purchased by Hasbro. Ken chalked it up to another idea that got away, but he had grown tough skin over the course of his career, and he knew other opportunities would present themselves. He just was not aware that the next big one would be spawned from a trip to, of all places, the Ozarks. In July 1995, Ken and Jan Forsse took a trip to Branson, Missouri, and stayed at the Bradford Inn. Upon visiting the Silver Dollar City amusement park, the two noticed the fact that there was an absence of walk-around characters. When they nonchalantly brought this up to their hostess, Lucy Westfall, she had a suggestion.
And they said, "Why don't you create a character for Branson?" And Ken said, I think I will. Ken and I decided that we wanted to take a project from the root and we wanted to develop it all the way through, whereas we had always licensed something before. So it was a learning experience for us.
By the time they were on the plane back to California, Ken had already given the character a name, Branson Bear. He even wrote the lyrics to 4 songs prior to landing. But Ken knew that despite having drawn a mock-up of him, he wanted his role to be that of writer, and did not want to be the artist on Branson Bear. For that job, he turned to John Moore and his paper sculptures.
I had always wanted to work on a project for children, particularly illustrating children's books. That was always a dream of mine. It had never occurred to me that it would happen this way with someone like Ken Forsse.
While John got to work, Ken continued writing songs for Branson Bear to perform. He said that he wanted to surround his newest creation with positive and peppy lyrics set to familiar show tunes, easily recognized by a family-oriented audience. And there was never any question as to who would compose the music.
I actually went out there and looked at what he was doing. They had already done a couple of bears and showed me all the artwork and everything. It was beautiful. And I went back and wrote 24 songs. He had written 24 lyrics. I wrote 24 songs. And as far as I'm concerned, man, that was a great product because some of those songs are just great.
Trees so green, he loves the forest animals, he loves the
I loved the Branson Bear music when I first heard it. I am a fan of bluegrass music, and I know this music that Ken and George created for Branson Bear had a little crossover between bluegrass and more contemporary country music, but the bluegrass elements especially, I was really, really drawn to, and I felt it was a pretty sophisticated soundtrack for a project like this. It was lively and fun and so impressive.
Branson Bear's parents, Sally and RJ, have always been very proud of him. From the time he was born, they knew he was very unique. They loved the idea of calling him Branson after the nearby city of music. The tiny bear had a curiosity that wouldn't be denied. He wanted to learn about everything around. He also wanted to do things. Branson always believed he could do most anything he set his mind to, and usually he was right because his parents encouraged him along the way.
One thing Ken does with the backstory is pay homage to his own parents, Edwin and Susie, by naming Branson Bear's maternal grandparents after them. It's his grandfather, a banjo player, who initially sparks his interest in music, as well as in music boxes.
But Edwin and Susie had some time beforehand moved out west, so it's up to RJ and Branson to continue extending the Timberland Railroad in order to connect to other lines in order to find them.
There is very much this strong sense of parental and grandparental love and encouragement, helping shape Branson into the young adult bear he becomes.
I have two special buddies upon my family tree, and when they come to visit, I'm who they come to see. They love to give me presents or bounce me on their knee. They think I should be spoiled, and that's alright with me. They're my grandma and my grandpa, and I don't see them enough. They're my grandma and my grandpa. They're gentle but they're tough. They teach me what is right or wrong. They teach me how to sing a song. They always let me tag along. My grandma and my grandpa.
Branson's very best friend is Becky Sue Bear. Like their families before them, they have always been good friends. She has made the very best of her talents. But most of all, Becky is very smart. She loves to write, so she has kept journals of all of Branson's adventures. Becky can also be counted on for enthusiasm combined with good old common sense.
I felt I was home free after I gave Ken my first set of designs for Branson's Treehouse and Becky Sue's Cave. Based on his reaction to those things, I knew we were fully on the same page. However, his reaction to my first character designs made it clear to me that, we weren't even on the same planet. He felt my characters probably wouldn't have functioned in the way they needed to. I think he felt they were a little bit too silly. Their proportions were a problem. It was really important to him that his characters looked good and functioned as illustrations, as plush toys, as animatronics, even as costumes worn by actors in a theme park. He really knew what he wanted when it came to character design.
It was so exciting to watch him write the stories, to draw the art, to work with John. I helped him, do things like get the ISBN numbers for the books. Anything Ken didn't want to do that wasn't, an artistic thing, I picked up. And so we were working together on a project that we truly loved, and it was exciting.
I tried to think of bringing fantasy into the world that might not have been typically what you saw in the Ozarks. Ken helped me a lot with that. When I would present designs to him, we would work out things together. He brought a lot of fantasy elements into it and steered me in directions where we could build it up a little bit. And for example, when we did Becky Sue's Cave, Ken suggested that rather than having just stalactites and stalagmites, we would put gems embedded into the stone that would shine, that sort of thing. A lot of those ideas came from Ken.
Ken wants Branson Bear to be considered high art. He's very clear about this.
And he wants the storybooks he's writing to visually pop, to have dimension to them.
The illustrations for Branson Bear were photographs of my original paper sculptures. The paper sculptures were created by hand cutting, painting, and sculpting and assembling thousands of pieces of paper to make up an image. Now for the books, we shot the scenic sculptures and the character sculptures separately. Then Ken combined them digitally. This gave us maximum design flexibility.
Branson Bear always seems to be struggling with some kind of problem. He is very good at coming up with solutions. So when his friends were reluctant to become members of his band, he quickly knew what he would do. He would build a mechanical band. After all, he was good at building things, and he had many of his grandfather's music boxes to look at. And so, the marvelous Missouri Music Machine was born. It put Branson Bear's dream right on track. It played beautiful music all by itself. So Branson could concentrate on becoming a singer and stage performer.
Obviously, music is a huge part of the whole thing. That's why he brought George Wilkins on board. But Ken's got his reasons for borderline obsessing over making sure all of the Branson Bear songs sound like nothing people have heard before.
I believe one of the great mysteries of life for Ken was the popularity of Barney the dinosaur. Ken really had a lot of issues with Barney. I think what ultimately bothered him the most was the melody of Barney's theme song. Let's say it was borrowed from the song This Old Man. Ken was all about being original. And when we started developing the Branson Bear project, I added a rogue character to the Branson Bear cast called Barney Bear, and I threw him into the mix whenever possible. My purple Dyna Bear made Ken a little crazy at first, but he eventually developed a fondness for him, and he started playing along, and it became a running gag between us.
And you know, nobody's saying Ken Forsse hated Barney the dinosaur. He actually felt challenged by the brand to step up and show what he thought a quality children's property of the 1990s should look and sound like.
On moonlit nights, Branson and Becky Sue would even lie on a hill overlooking the town of Branson. From there, they would watch the sparkling lights and hear the music. By simply observing from many hilltop vantage points, Branson learned more and more about the sounds coming from that musical community. At the same time, Branson realized he loved Branson, and it was ultimately the inspiration from that city that finally caused him to concentrate on his music. On a breezy spring morning, Feathers the owl flew through the forest on her way to the old oak treehouse. When Feathers arrived at the treehouse, she landed on a windowsill and began tap-tap-tapping on the glass. After a while, a sleepy Branson Bear opened the window. Branson yawned, "Oh, hello, Feathers. What's going on? I'm trying to do my best to hibernate." Feathers said, "Don't you remember, Branson? You promised that the kite contest would be today."
Branson Bear and the Kite Contest was the first of the 2 storybooks written by Ken and illustrated by John. It served to introduce the characters of Ken's special part of the Ozarks. In addition to Feathers the Owl, readers are greeted by the Beaver Twins, Blue Rabbit, Elroy Raccoon, and Ted Armadillo. 2 of Branson's and Becky Sue's bear friends, Claude and Girth, are present as well.
Claude Bear is a perfect example of Ken's sense of humor. Here's a fisherman who lives on the edge of a lake, knows everything there is to know about fish, but he's never caught one in his entire life.
Branson has never mentioned this theory to anyone, but he believes that if Claude actually caught a fish, he would probably throw it back. Meanwhile, Claude catches everything but fish. In fact, he has been responsible for clearing away much of the junk that finds its way to the bottom of the lake.
Girth Bear is very much a continuance of Ken's love of gentle giant characters. He serves as the voice of environmental conservation in the Branson Bear universe. But Ken made him a realist in that while he wants to protect the trees, he understands the need for lumber when it's used wisely.
Girth also had his own dream. He had always wanted to write a book all about trees. For a long time, Girth got nervous at the thought of writing something. But he had so much important knowledge about trees that Branson finally convinced him he could do it.
Over the course of the first storybook, Branson and his friends each build their own kites, with the grand prize being a basket filled with chocolate chip cookies. By book's end, Feathers, who acts as judge, declares Claude Bear's fish kite the winner.
Claude gave everyone a cookie from the big grand prize basket. As they ate the cookies, Claude said, "Thank you for encouraging me, Branson." Branson Bear smiled at his friend and said, "You're welcome, Claude. I knew you could do it." On a beautiful summer morning, Elroy Raccoon scampered through the grass on his way to the old oak treehouse. When Elroy Raccoon arrived at the treehouse, he climbed up onto a windowsill and began tap-tap-tapping on the glass. After a while, a sleepy Branson Bear opened the window. Branson yawned, "Oh, hello, Elroy. What's going on? I'm trying my best to hibernate." Elroy answered, "Don't you remember, Branson? You promised we would bake a honeyberry pie today."
Branson Bear and the Honeyberry Pie was the second storybook and received some extra special attention from its creators.
We're baking honeyberry pie with the honey that the bees are making and some fresh blueberries. We'll be baking a great big yummy honeyberry pie.
Hi, Becky Sue. Elroy Raccoon and I thought you might show us how to bake a honeyberry pie.
It's kind of early in the day for pie. Did the two of you get any exercise today?
No, not really.
Well, I'll help you bake your honeyberry pie if the two of you will get all of the ingredients.
Well, it was one of my best memories of working with Ken. When we shot the promo video, some photographer friends of Ken's came to the studio and set up a small dolly track that meandered through a kind of movie set we created with our paper sculpture pieces. We had a lot of fun that day. We laughed, we listened to the music, and I think that we ended up with really kind of a fun little project.
Of course you can have some peanut butter.
Thank you, Feathers. And we'd like you to have some of the honeyberry pie.
Another thing on the list was blueberries, and they were sure they knew who would have some. So off they ran to Blue Rabbit's house. Blue Rabbit told him they could have some blueberries if he could have some of the honeyberry pie.
One thing about the honeyberry pie book that I really liked was I liked the color scheme. That was a summertime theme, and I liked all of the warm tones. I found that one had more interesting whole landscapes and that sort of thing. It also showed a lot of the dwellings that the characters lived in.
It will take 1 hour to bake the pie.
Hey, that's great, Becky Sue. I think Elroy and I will rest on the front porch till the pie's ready. You know, we ran around a lot today. Right, Elroy?
Right, Branson.
Yes, you really got your exercise today.
Well, I was very excited about the stories. I knew they were geared toward little children, but I could immediately see when I read the two books the creative possibilities with all of the characters. I saw a lot of potential.
Say hello to Branson and Becky Sue Bear and their family of bears, beavers, a possum, and an owl. Designers Ken and Jan Forsse are already marketing Branson Bear, a plush stuffed animal, at several Branson outlets along with Branson Bear reading books, music cassettes, and coloring portfolios. Branson Bear constantly reinforces Branson. It's like a lot of little ambassadors going out across the country, said Lucy Westfall. Branson Bear, who sells for $29.95 for the 16-inch size and $39.95 for the 19-inch animal, wears a pair of blue jeans, a t-shirt, and a blue leather vest. Steve Kohler, the Springfield News Leader, May 29, 1997.
Now the creator of Teddy Ruxpin is introducing a new bear. Meet Branson Bear.
He lives somewhere near Branson in a place that we can never quite find. But he's been watching the music taking place in Branson, and so his goal is to become a country music bear and have his own theater. This is Becky Sue making the honeyberry pie.
Branson Bear has an array of friends. They come to life in books, through song, and on videotape. Forsse started working on the project after his first trip to Branson. That was 2 years ago. He'd eventually like to open a Branson Bear theme park.
This is Branson's treehouse here, and that's kind of a tiny version of the larger illustration. This is where Becky lives over here in the cave house. There's a general store, and eventually there will be a train station.
Watercolor and paper sculpture collages are used for the book illustration. Forsse hopes while children have fun with Branson Bear, they're learning. He says his bear has the same values as the people living in the Ozarks.
Hopefully the music is in some way teaching children about sharing and determination and appreciation for nature.
I don't know how I did it, but I talked him into doing the NBC interview. He loved that project so much that he excused his shyness.
He was very smart and very creative, but he was also a very private person. Most of the time he was quiet and contemplative, but there were moments when he'd cut loose and laugh and joke around. Those were great moments, and I saw a lot of that from Ken in Branson, probably more than any other time.
What's really adorable about the Branson Bear plush is that there was also a cowboy hat accessory, like the one he wears in the storybooks, that had bear ears attached to it.
That was Ken being Ken. He knew the look of the character should be maintained from page to toy. Hiding the ears of the plush under a hat wouldn't be consistent, and having holes in the hat might have made it difficult for kids to get the ears through.
When he conceived of a project, he could conceive of every detail involved in the project. I think that he looked at others and understood when they could bring something to the table that he couldn't. He was always going for the best product he could get. I think he would do anything to make that happen.
One store has already ordered a third time. A lot of grandparents are really interested. Eventually, the bear will become a national and international product. I think it will help the Branson community. We're talking about possible stage productions of Branson Bear based on the songs we've written about him. The music could be adapted for the stage.
You know, our experience in Branson was crazy busy at first. We had to finish putting together some of our frame paper sculpture illustrations. We also had quite a few big displays to put together. Once everything was finished and set up, we really had a great time. We enjoyed the interviews, and it was a real thrilling experience to sit next to Ken Forsse, signing all of the products that we created. The whole thing was a great experience. It was also very nice to stay in the inn that Ken and Jan first got the idea for Branson Bear.
And I can recall one occasion when a very dear friend of mine walked into one of the stores that was selling Branson Bear and opened it up and said, "Oh, this is my friend, I know them." And the lady said, "Oh yeah, and I think they're in town this week." It was like we were a part of the community, and it was exciting.
Being in Branson with the Forsses, having all of my work displayed on the walls of the Moon River Theater, talking to Andy Williams about the work, all of that was so very exciting.
My friend Lucy Westfall made darling cookies, Branson Bear cookies, and we had a huge reception.
I not only had the experience myself of being able to hold the bear and get that sense of what it's like to be sort of a child again, but I also got to see a lot of children holding that bear, and I got to see their reaction when we were doing the promotional stint in Branson. Kids just loved it. They knew the songs. They knew the whole project and really seemed to embrace all of it.
It was a really exciting time. Pretty dynamic. A lot of interesting things were going on, and we met a lot of interesting people.
I certainly wish Branson Bear had endured longer. Ken had so many wonderful ideas for future books. There were many, many plans that we never saw materialize. It was quite a shame to get to the point where we were just sort of on the verge of this wonderful thing happening, and then to have it fizzle out.
There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and the Ozarks have a home inside of me. So if you should catch me roaming, I'll be heading for my home in the Ozarks, 'cause my Ozark home is where I want to be.
There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and my Ozark home is where I want to be. We'll sit on the porch for hours, watching early morning showers, eating sticky buns from Mama's recipe.
Where the sunshine on the forest brings the early mist of day, and the flowers that are growing give the bees a place to play.
Where the silver lake reflects the brightest, bluest kind of sky.
Where the birds dance in the air and show the clouds how they can fly. There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and the Ozarks have a home inside of me. So if you should catch me roaming, I'll be heading for my home in the Ozarks, 'cause my Ozark home is where I want to be. sunsets filter gently through the trees.
Where the silver lake reflects the brightest starlight and the moon.
Where the frogs and crickets sing the same sweet old mountain tune. There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and the Ozarks have a home inside of me. So if you should catch me roaming, I'll be headed for my home in the Ozarks, 'cause my Ozark home is where I wanna be. There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and my Ozark home is where I wanna be. We'll sit on the porch for hours, watching early morning showers, eating sticky buns from Mama's recipe. There is no place like my home in the Ozarks, and the Ozarks have a home inside of me. So if you should catch me roaming, I'll be heading for my home in the Ozarks, 'cause my Ozark home is where I wanna be.
A matrix having a primary cell and a plurality of secondary cells surrounding the primary cell is used to visually organize informational concepts and relationships. Primary objective or subject data is inserted in the primary cell. Data related to the primary objective or subject data, such as features or characteristics of the primary objective or subject data, is inserted into the surrounding secondary cells. Due to the organization of the related data and the surrounding secondary cells, the primary objective or subject can be interpreted and comprehended more easily.
Despite having achieved a fair level of success, Ken Forsse never stopped creating. He always felt there were ways to make life a little less complicated. His matrix invention was designed to create a visualization system for discovering, interpreting, creating, presenting, and comprehending information. Ken saw this as a valuable tool that would aid in a wide range of endeavors, including strategic planning, problem solving, creative organization, concept of visualization, business relationship analysis, management training, media presentation, and a slew of other undertakings.
Despite Ken's desire to better the world, he was also a sucker for creating toys and other novelties. He couldn't help himself. And so we get from him things like the amazing Chudini.
It's this really cute looking puzzle in the shape of a mouse trapped inside a wedge of cheese. You have to figure out how to free him from it.
And if you're successful, there's a tiny prize inside in the form of a keychain.
Ken, of course, also made sure that once you figured out how to unlock the mouse, now you had a way to keep little things secret, like notes or spare change.
One of Ken's fun-loving passions was collecting wind-up toys. He had nearly 3,000 pieces prominently displayed in his home in Dana Point. But he would not be limited to simply collecting. Ken also designed his own versions, including one that he named Mona.
Then one day we're sitting in his family room, where he has a lot of his inventions all over the place. The doorbell rings and Ken gets up and excuses himself, and he comes back with a package and he unwraps it and he takes out this little polar bear that has a globe in his paws, and he winds it up and he sets it down and it goes. And he looks at it and he says, "That's stupid. What I designed was a cat playing with a ball of wool. Who's ever heard of a polar bear playing with a globe?" He had an idea, and his idea was great. Somebody took his idea and turned it into something else, and he's looking at it, he's reflecting on it, and he's saying, I don't know why they would do that.
The wind-up toys are tired. They've had all day to play. The wind-up toys are tired. They've had a busy day. They did backflips and somersaults, some walked across the floor, some jumped rope and some rolled over, then they walked around some more. The wind-up toys are tired, they've had all day to play. The wind-up toys are tired, they've been wound up all day. They've rolled around and strolled around, some hopped off down the hall, some were swimming in a bathtub, some tried climbing up the wall. The wind-up toys are tired, their springs were wound real tight, but they have all wound down now, and they're fast asleep tonight.
Ken had one project that he especially loved. This was really a fun thing to do. It's a project that he knew he wanted to go to junk stores and we would pick up stuff, and he wanted to build a robot out of all this junk. So he called the project Junk Bots. It's a really unique story. Ken just developed so many projects. He has a wealth of information and projects that are very detailed and have to get out into the world.
A Rivet book is a book and a toy rolled into one. The Junkbots property provides a perfect line of characters for the Rivet Books format. Each character has a distinctive silhouette as well as different moving parts. Painterbot is holding a paintbrush and paint roller. His roller pants stomach folds down just like the real Painterbot. The result is an entertaining book and toy combination, which is also educational.
Ken was an early riser. He would get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and for a long time he'd drink a whole pot of coffee before I got up about 7 or 8. He just loved to write, but he did all of his writing very early in the morning. He liked to write with a yellow pad, a legal pad. I got so I couldn't keep up with him. He was such a prolific writer. Everything he did, he'd won a patent, and I said, no more patents until you sell another one of these. He has many wonderful projects that should be out there in the world. He was not the marketer, he was the creator. I'm looking forward to carrying on his legacy as our other members of the family.
Even as Ken spent his later years coming up with new ideas, visualizing them, editing, and revising their descriptions and blueprints, there was never a day spent when he did not think about his greatest creation. For Ken Forsse, Teddy Ruxpin had always been and would always be a part of his heart and soul, and he never gave up on him.
Come dream with me tonight. Let's go to far-off places and search for treasures bright. Come dream with me tonight. Let's build a giant airship and sail into the sky. Let's watch the ground so far below. Let's watch the birds as they fly by. The butterflies in springtime will lead us on our way. Exploding dandelions will brighten summer's day. And if our dream's a good one, and if our dream is right, then imagination can be real if we will dream tonight. Come dream with me tonight. Let's go to far-off places and search for treasures bright. Come dream with me tonight. Let's meet a lovely princess and stand before a king. Let's dream a great adventure and let us live that magic dream. The orange leaves of autumn will crackle in the air. In winter tiny snowflakes will sparkle everywhere. And if our dream's a good one, and if we see it through, then the wondrous dream we dream tonight someday just might come true.